Yes, more or less.
Yeah, I think that we can actually read, and there is not a lot of text, so I think that like that is fine. There is also, if you go down where you see the percentage 48, there must be a little button on the left where you will have like an arrow, like a screen and a little arrow below, and that should maximize the presentation. But for me, this is fine. So if for all the viewers it's also okay, I think that this is something that it's manageable.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So as I was saying, thanks a lot for the opportunity to present Horizon Europe. So Horizon Europe comes, after a long tradition of the European Commission funding research and innovation. So this is, in our own terminology, the 9th framework program that we have. The framework programs provide stable and foreseeable funding scheme. It's the largest funding scheme of research and innovation in Europe, and it provides this stable framework for 7 years. So what we have at the moment is that Horizon Europe was finally adopted by the co-legislator, both the Council and the Parliament, and entered into force 2 weeks ago. So it's quite fresh from the oven. And the intention of my presentation is to present, what are the key novelties that you will be able to find in Horizon Europe, and also to have a specific focus on opportunities that will come up or that will be made available at Horizon Europe in order for finding opportunities and finding opportunities for the humanities. So as you know, Horizon Europe, as trying to focus on research and innovation, is forward-looking, and it's one of the key instruments that the European Commission has, not only for funding research and innovation, but setting the future for Europe that we want. So if we move to the next slide, and maybe to slide 3 already, what we can see, if we move to the next slide as well. So to give you a little bit of background in terms of the philosophy on which Horizon Europe has been created. So this is very much inspired by the Sustainable Development Goals, so the need to deliver on this common agenda that we have, not only at European level, but worldwide. So, and it's very much inspired on how we can help and contribute in delivering, the objectives, the 17 objectives that we have set up for this ambitious agenda, such as trying to address climate change, but also to try to ensure that we will have more robust and higher quality type of jobs in Europe, increase the competitiveness of European economy, of our industries, so that they can trigger down this better level of prosperity and the type of economic growth that we want in Europe. And the way to do so is by getting inspired and undertaking these research and innovation activities according to what we consider are European values, in terms of trying to promote research excellence, but also the diffusion of this excellence, because as we know, there are still some issues in Europe where there is still some sort of scientific gap or an innovation divide within Europe. So we all want to improve and spread this excellence across all regions of Europe. We support openness as, a general principle and a general value of how research and innovation should be conducted. And finally, we also support stronger levels of collaboration between different research groups across Europe, but also between research groups and industry as a way to valorize the need for to valorize the research results that are coming out from the funding that we are providing. If we move to the next slide, also in terms of context and understanding on how Horizon Europe has been created, if we move to slide 4. So basically there what we have, David, I don't know if you can move to the next slide. Yeah, so just to give you a little bit of background on what's the context in which it has been created. is that we know that in Europe we are relatively good in research. So when we look at the percentage of our population in terms of the world population, we know that we are 6% of the total individuals in the world, but that we invest around 17% of all the global R&I investment, and we are responsible for 25% or 1/4 of all the high quality scientific publications in the world. Values that are a little bit behind the US, but not that far behind. However, even though we are very good in research, we see that we are not so good at translating this scientific excellence somehow in economic returns and valorizing what it has been described a little bit as an innovation paradox in Europe, where we see that we need to make a special effort to move and to ensure that we can create value. And I'm not talking only about economic value, but also societal value out of the research that we are funding, and also to mobilize, to a certain extent, private research and innovation that is fundamental in order to achieve the goals that we have set for ourselves. So if we move to the next slide, to slide number 5, it is in this context that Horizon Europe is created with a triple objective, if I may say. So the first one is to continue supporting science and technological development, so ensuring that we continue to support this scientific excellence as the beacon of our future development in the context of strengthening the European research area that we have set for ourselves as the policy framework to work on research and innovation policy in Europe. The second one is to ensure that we tackle policy priorities that are important for society. And here we include the green and digital transitions, which are the two of the core objectives of the von der Leyen Commission's that is in office at the moment. And the third and final objective is to boost Europe's economic outcome and the competitiveness of our economies for job creation. So we have this triple helix, if I may say, in the context of the objectives of Horizon Europe, that is to support science and technology, ensure that we valorize this both for the economy and society. So if we move to the next slide, here what you can see, and I will spend a little bit of time here because somehow this is the big framework to understand how Horizon Europe is organized. What you see there is the research and innovation programs in Europe. On the one hand, you have the Euratom program, which is very focused on nuclear energy. And then you have Horizon Europe that is divided into two big blocks. So one is research that is aimed for defense, and the second biggest pillar, if I may say, is Horizon Europe per se, if I may say, that is very much focused on civil research and innovation. And it's here where I'm going to focus most of the attention, because it's here where, the part that is probably most relevant for humanities, but also where probably most of the funding is available. So if we look at that central piece in this slide, what you can see is that Horizon Europe is organized around 4 core pillars. So the first pillar is about scientific excellence. So it's trying to support excellence in research, a very important component. If you think of the previous slide, it's one of the key components that we had, science and technology. And here we have 3 different programs. So the first one is the European Research Council. So something that is not new, it was already in Horizon 2020, is trying to support scientific excellence as its best in a bottom-up type of approach, trying to get the best funding for the best research possible in terms of pushing the boundaries of our scientific knowledge. Then we have the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions. And Asun, I think that you already mentioned in your introduction that you are very much involved in this part of the program that is trying to support also collaboration between different researchers at different levels of advance in the academic research of the scientists. And then we have research infrastructures that are fundamental in structuring research and innovation across Europe, and that is granting access to the development and access to research infrastructures throughout Europe. So this is the first pillar of Horizon Europe. The second pillar is about global challenges and promoting the European industrial competitiveness. So here, what we are trying to push is research that is oriented to address some specific challenges that are important for our society and economy. And here, as you can see there, it is organized around 6 big clusters. So the first one is around health, something that it has become very relevant, has always been very relevant, but has become even more relevant, if I may say so, due to the COVID crisis, where we have really realized the importance of getting rapid solutions to our health issues. And even in the previous program in Horizons 2020, there was a record mobilization of funding to address the COVID crisis and to find solutions for the COVID crisis. So the second cluster is about culture, creativity, and inclusive society. Probably one of the core pillars where the humanities has a strong or one of the strongest role to play, but not only here, because as I will mention at the end, everything is very integrated. And Asun also mentioned in her presentation that there's a new approach in doing research and innovation where we need to have integrated approach where humanities with the hard sciences and the social sciences need to come together to find suitable solutions. But in any case, this is also one particular cluster of activities that might be particularly relevant for the humanities. Then the third pillar or the third cluster is about fuel security for society. The fourth cluster is about digital, or the transformation of our industries, of the space technologies, etc. The fifth pillar is about climate, energy, and mobility. So very much about the ecological transition that we need to have in Europe. And the sixth and final cluster there is about food, bioeconomy, and natural resources, and agriculture and environment. So these are the 6 clusters where this directed type of research will be organized. And here we also have the action of our own in-house think tank, which is the Joint Research Center. The third pillar is about innovation. This is a little bit one of the core novelties of Horizon Europe. So here what we have is the work on 3 particular areas. Some of them have been ongoing and some others are starting. Very much kicking off with the creation of the European Innovation Council, that to a certain extent is the reply that we are trying to have in Europe to the well-consolidated European Research Council that is very much established for pushing the boundaries of research excellence in Europe. Here, with the European Innovation Council, what we are trying to do is something similar for supporting breakthrough innovations in Europe. Innovations that are too risky to mobilize private funding, and that can have very long-lasting impacts in our economy and society. And I will spend a little bit more of time later on this, so just bear with me in this regard. The second element in this pillar is about the European innovation ecosystems, that is trying to see how we can help escalate or scale up innovations that are happening in Europe to have the critical mass so that they can become global innovations and have far-reaching impacts in our economy. In this part of the program, we are also trying to connect the different regional ecosystems in Europe, but sometimes they are still a little bit fragmented. So we know that the regional and national innovation systems more or less tend to work well, but when we come to the European innovation ecosystem as one particular ecosystem where the knowledge flows are happening, well, we see that there are still some fragmentations and that we need to adopt some measures to facilitate the better interconnection of these ecosystems in Europe. And the final element there is the European Institute for Innovation and Technology. That is not new, and it's something that it has been there already for quite some time, that is trying to promote the connections between universities and industry around particular areas of interest in Europe. So these are the three core pillars of Horizon Europe. And then, as you can see at the bottom, it's like a horizontal line that is cross-cutting all the three pillars, that is about widening participation and strengthening the European research area. And these are actions that are aiming at two particular goals. So the first one is to support the spreading of excellence across Europe. So we must acknowledge that there is still an innovation divide in Europe, where some countries and some regions are still lagging behind, and we need to strengthen their ability to contribute to and benefit from stronger research excellence and innovation. So there will be a set of measures dedicated for these particular countries. And then there are also, a small portion of the program that is devoted to supporting reform of the European innovation systems in order to make a European research area more performant. So in a nutshell, this is a little bit the big building blocks that you will find in Horizon Europe. And if we move to the next slide, we will have the distribution of the funding that will be made available for the different parts of the pillars. So first of all, let me just highlight that for the next 7 years, we will have nearly 100 billion euro budget, so 95.5 billion. This is composed of or includes 5.4 billion euro that are coming for the next generation EU program. So as you may know, this is the European program that we have set for the recovery for the pandemic, and something that is very topical also in Spain. You hear it a lot in the news about the recovery and resilience plans. So that's the big bulk of the funding for the next generation EU, but there is also a particular portion of that will be devoted to research and innovation, and this is what it makes the total amount of 95.5 billion euro available for the next 7 years. In terms of the big building blocks, so you can see there, so the big chunk, so more than 50% of the funding will be allocated to Pillar 2, so what that is related to these global challenges and promoting the European industrial competitiveness around the 6 clusters that I was enumerating before. Then there will be 25 billion euros, so there's a big increase in this budget in comparison to the previous programming period for excellent science, so for the Marie Curie actions, for the European Research Council actions, and for research infrastructure that remain stable. Then there will be 13.6 billion euro allocated to the third pillar, to the innovation pillar, with a big percentage of this funding allocated to the European Innovation Council, with the first calls being issued right now. And finally, there will be a 3%, around, well, a little bit more than 3% of the funding allocated to the widening actions, so to those activities that are aimed at bridging the innovation divide in Europe through Horizon Europe and strengthening the European research area. So that gives you a little bit of an indication of the main funding blocks in Horizon Europe. If we move to the next slide, what you will see there is some of the lessons learned that we draw after implementing Horizon 2020, so the previous programming scheme that we had, and what are the key novelties that you will find in Horizon Europe. And I will focus the rest of my presentation very much in trying to guide you through this novelty somehow, because I think that probably is where the more probably where there might be more interest in the audience. So in terms of lessons learned, so we crossed 6 big areas. So the first one is about the need to support breakthrough innovation. I already mentioned before that this is an area where Europe particularly lags behind, and especially through the digital revolution that we have experienced in the past couple of decades, and where we need to provide an appropriate response. And one of the novelties to address the issue is the creation of the European Innovation Council, and I will mention a few more words later on. The second one is about the need to create more impact for society, something that becomes more visible for citizens and that engage citizens in a stronger manner than it has been done in the past. And the answer to this particular learning or lesson is the creation and setup of 5 research and innovation missions, and I will also say a few words about that. The third one is about the need to rationalize the landscape of industrial partnerships that we had in the past. There were quite a lot, so we are having a new approach for partnerships. We want to reinforce the openness of our research and innovation program. It's something that public funding should lead to the extent of possible to a publicly available made scientific results, so that it can facilitate the knowledge flows and the spread of scientific knowledge. And that's why we are reinforcing our open science policy. We also want to strengthen the international cooperation, so we're going to expand the association possibilities. We also want to encourage participation with the spreading excellence. So let me just say a few words, and I'm a little bit conscious of the time. So I will try just to focus on the particular aspects that I think may be most relevant for you. So if we move to the next slide and we start with the European Innovation Council. So just to mention that the overall objective is to promote these breakthrough innovations. It will have a very strong component on SMEs. So 70% of this funding will be dedicated for SMEs, so small enterprises with the potential to scale up. The approach that we are adopting here is a bottom-up, so it will not be directed as it is, the main objective under pillar 2. So there will be proposals coming from innovators to obtain this funding, and it will not be in any particular field. So it will be this, truly bottom-up. But at the difference of the European Research Council, that it's purely bottom-up, there will be some particular calls that will be directed in some strategic areas. For example, we had one related to the Green Deal, and this is something that it will continue. But the overall logic and approach will continue to be bottom-up in that regard. And maybe just to mention that there will be a different type of management style in this type of grants, because the innovators that are asking for this funding probably have different type of needs and counseling than researchers that are aiming at getting funding for particular research areas or research fields. So just to mention that, and that the final part is that what we intend with the EIC is to have the whole continuum from trying to get these breakthrough innovations through the Pathfinder instrument to allow for some transition with proof of concept type of projects to the actual acceleration and scale up of these innovation concepts that have been proved and that have proved successfully in order to accelerate and come to the market much faster. If we move to the next slide, it's about the European mission. So again, the overall logic is about connecting more strongly science to the citizens and have the engagement of the citizens. So the definition that we have there is that we are trying to achieve bold, inspirational, and measurable goals, something that is very important in a particular time frame, and that can have an impact for society. This is very much influenced by the thoughts of Mariana Mazzucato and the moonshot missions that we had in the 60s, where we brought together different type of fields, scientific fields together in order to provide a very specific answer to a particular need, and that had many different spillover afterwards in terms of the results. And if we move to the next slide, you have an enumeration of the 5 missions that we will have in Horizon Europe. If we move to slide 11, so you will see that we have missions that are related to the adaptation of climate change, missions to address cancer, to have healthy oceans, to develop climate neutral and smart cities, and also a mission on soil health and food, very much, from farm to fork type of chain development. So those are the 5 areas that have been retained in Horizon Europe. If we move to the next slides, and here I will be much briefer, just to give you an overall indication, is that we are taking a new approach on the European partnerships. So we want to increase the number of partnerships that we had in the past, that were over more than 100, and I think that we are going for about 50, or around 50 type of partnerships. There will be 3 type of partnerships: those that are called program, so where member states, industry, and the European Commission come together according to one particular agenda, but where there are no resources that are being shared, so everyone is developing their own type of program. Then there will be the co-funded type of partnership, where resources will be brought together, and there will be some calls organized around these co-funded partnerships. And then the higher level of integration, if I may say, or a stronger level of partnership, will be those that will be institutionalized partnerships, where there will be joint undertakings, for example, being created, that creates a more stable institutional framework, and that's in order to provide the delivery of the objectives of those particular partnerships in particular areas. If we move to the next slide, it's about international cooperation. So once again, we don't want to make research in Europe, an inward fortress. We want it to be open, to be able to mobilize all the possible talent around the world, and also to be and create collaborations with research centers anywhere where they are located. Also looking from the COVID-19 crisis, where the international cooperation was fundamental to find such a quick solution for finding the vaccines, etc. If we move to the next slide, and it's just about reinforcing the message about the importance of open science. Here we have the general principle that to the extent of possible, the research results that are funded through public funding should become publicly available. We understand as well that in some cases there might be some restrictions when we have to, or when researchers or innovators may need to, or are using this funding also to find ways to bring them to the market. But as a general principle, our philosophy is to be as open as possible and as close as necessary. And here there are a battery of policy developments that are taking place in order to make sure that this is happening. And then this brings me to my last slide, that it's about opportunities for humanities. And if we move to slide 15, David. So here, as it already happened in Horizon 2020, we are not following a scientific field type of goals. So everything is integrated because we are looking for solutions. And this is something that it has to be very clear. So there will not be a call that is, framework program for humanities, as there will not be for physics, as there will not be for biology, as there will not be for any particular scientific field. So how Horizon Europe is organized is taking this integrated approach where you can have and you can participate in projects where humanities are coming together with hard science, with social sciences, to bring together different solutions. And we are hoping to see all this integrated approach in most or all of the projects that are there. And these are the opportunities that will be available for humanities in Horizon Europe. So the whole program remains open to humanities, something that is also very important, beyond the specific cluster, and whether maybe, there might be more opportunities in cluster 2 than in others. It remains to be seen, but in principle, everything is open and provides opportunities for the humanities. I think this is a good news, so that it's not restricted to any particular area. I think that it also moves with the new philosophy of having this integrated approach to deliver solutions. And finally, also to mention that there will be opportunities, in particular in the bottom-up parts of the project, where they are open as well to any particular fields, be at the European Research Council or the Marie Skłodowska-Curie type of actions. So with this, I conclude my presentation. I had a final quote from the Commissioner, but basically it's just to summarize the general ambition that we have for Horizon Europe. And let me just pause here and thank you for your attention, and that I remain available for any questions you may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you.